domain and range. So for part A, for number 4, can someone just tell me what the domain is going to be? Yeah, it's 2. So I'll say x belongs to the set of numbers like 2. What other number is there? 5. What other number? Yep, what other number? That's it. Done. Okay, now this is the formal way of writing down the domain. I know some people will just say just list them out, and if you just wrote down 2, 5, 7, 9, that's okay as well. I think in the back of your textbook they do the formal way, so I'll write it as the formal way as well. Okay? How about the range, dear friends? 5, 7, 5, 7. Do we have to copy them twice? No. So just write down 5 and 7. That's perfectly fine. Okay? Now sometimes the actual data is given to you as a table of values, so it's pretty much the same as if they were an ordered pair. So quickly now for the domain of part B, you would just list out the values for x of 2, 6, 7, 10, and 12. Okay? And similarly with the range, you list out the y values 2, 5, 9, and 13. Okay? So for part C here with the parabola, notice that we're looking for all the different values along the x-axis. So that would be all real numbers. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, what would you say now for the range of this function? So the range means what are all the possible y values? List out some y values that you see here. Y? Like which ones? 1? Okay, so let me... 1 would be right here, right? So like there and there, okay. Now, someone said -3. I don't see the y of -3. There's nothing there. So 0 looks good, right? 0, 1, what else? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10. And these arrows mean that they go up and up and up and up forever, so it's infinitely always this way. Do we just want the whole numbers, or do we want everything else in between them too? So how do we describe all these numbers that seem to be bigger or equal to 0? How would you write that down? This is what you would say. Y belongs to the set of numbers where y is, I just said it, bigger or equal to. How do we write that down? A greater than or equal sign, yeah. 0. That's it. Okay. That's how you describe the range. Now, to hopefully solidify this concept to you, I'm going to show you this little program here. See this function, right? This is my parabola function. What I'm going to do is, as I move the tracer, it's going to actually graph out things along the x-axis to describe the domain. You see I put this as yes. Okay, so display domain. Watch what happens when I move this, okay? As I move this, do you see what's happening? It's tracing out all the possible x values of this graph. Okay? Now, do you see why there are arrows at the end here? Because this actually goes further and further too, right? So technically, it covers all of the x-axis. That's why the domain is all real numbers. Get that? Yeah. Now, what if I change this to no, and I will change the bottom one to yes? Watch what happens here now, okay? So what happens is the bottom one talks about the range, and once again, I will drag this, and watch what happens. It tries to trace out the range. Oh no, I have to change to yes first, don't I? Sorry. Yes. Now try. Okay. So you see, this is the range, the values of the range. Now notice the smallest y value is 0, right? And then as this part here, as I move up, well, it doesn't trace out anything because it just goes back up. So you see the pink here describes all the possible values of y, and we would say that the possible values of y are all values that are greater or equal to 0. Does that make sense? Okay. If it doesn't, let's try a few more. Can you take a look at this one right now? The square root function. Okay. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds right now to predict what you think the answers would be for domain and range. And then afterwards, I will show you what this looks like using this little program here. Okay. But right now, take a quick prediction to figure out what the domain and range is of. Okay, x is bigger or equal to 0. Let's see if he's right. Don't write this down yet. Okay, let's see if he's right. Okay, let's go do this, and I'm going to type in yes to represent the domain, and let's take a look as I move. Okay, as I move along, what happens? It looks like I'm shading in the x-axis all the way to the right, and once again, this arrow means it goes on forever and ever, so this goes on forever and ever. The smallest value is 0. Bravo, you're correct. Nice. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the correct answer for the domain. It's x has to be a number that is greater or equal to 0. Awesome. By the way, if you want to do the same thing in your notes and shade it, you can. You don't have to, but don't know if that helps you or not. Okay. All right. Anyone have a suggestion of what the range would be for this one? No suggestions? Y, yeah, that's a good start. It's the y. Y is greater or equal to 0, Paula suggests. Okay, don't write that down yet. Let's take a look. Back to this program here. Whoop. Let's go back. Let's change this to no, that one to yes. All right, let's take a look. As I move, let's see what happens. And remember, this arrow means it goes further and further and further. It seems like as I go further and further to the right, this also goes up, 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 up higher. So that's why we have that arrow going up forever. And I believe Paula is also correct that this is y is greater or equal to 0. Okay? All right, dear friends. Going to give you a few seconds to try the next two, please. E and F on your own. Give you about 30 seconds to try those. Write down your predicted answers, and let's see if you're right. Okay? E, absolute value. So here's my absolute value one. Let's change it to yes for the domain. And can someone tell me what you think the domain is in this case? All real numbers, right? Look, as I move, you got the arrows, they go both ways, so all real numbers. Bravo. Write that down. So domain here should be all real numbers. That's sideways E with a double bar R. How about the range? Range should be just this part here. Okay? Greater than, or be careful, it can also equal to 0. Okay? That little line here, that's equal. Yeah. So this little line that I'm going to highlight in yellow here means equal. Yeah. Is that okay, Jillian? Yep. Okay. The next one, reciprocal, is kind of interesting. Okay. By the way, you don't need to know what the names of these graphs. I show them to you now because in grade 11 and 12 you'll see them again. So I thought I'd just introduce them to you. But really right now, just focus on the picture and see if you can find the domain from there. Any suggestions about the domain for this one? By the way, this one's tricky. Did someone say all real numbers? How many of you wrote that down? Be honest.
I was going.
You were going to. Okay. If you do, you're almost right. You're almost right. Okay? It's almost right. Let's take a look why. Let me go back to here. Okay? Let me show you the reciprocal one. Let me show you what happens when I type in yes for the domain. Okay? Watch and be mesmerized. Here we go. Okay, so you're graphing out here, traveling along, and you got this. That's great. Now, hey, what do you think happens when I get closer and closer to 0 here? This graph goes down, so I don't care about the down part because I'm looking at just the domain, the horizontal movement. But after that, it's gonna jump and be over here. Okay, so watch what happens to the part that's in blue as I move. Did you see something there, dear friends? There's an empty dot. Remember what I told you about an empty dot before? Empty dot means not included. So at 0 for this graph, we've got a problem. It doesn't exist. So if you said the answer was all real numbers, that means you would also include the 0. You would make this solid, which doesn't work for this one. So what can we do in terms of writing our answer here? You could say the following. Which number does not work? 0. So I'll say x cannot be equal to 0. This is the cannot sign, or does not equal to sign. So I'll write down x does not equal to 0, but the rest work. So the rest I'll say is the rest of the real numbers work. So that's the answer for this one. Okay, all the values work except 0. 0 is no good. Okay, this one's tricky. Now I'm going to show you the range as well. Okay. By the way, once again, if you want to shade it like my computer program, you can start shading it like this too, and then put a little hole there if you want to describe that as the domain. Okay. By the way, this concept is not easy, so please try to understand this stuff today. When I try now with the range, I'll quickly look and change this here. So no, yes. You didn't see that. Okay. Let's see what happens with the range as I move. Okay. I guess it's going down, so I'm drawing my pink line down like this. And then what happens over here after 0? It goes up. But look at this case here. Does my y value ever get close to the line that's at 0 here? No. So same as the last case, you're going to get this open dot, and that open dot means that the y value never equals to 0. So therefore, if you wanted to write down the range, it's very similar to what we had before. Y cannot equal to 0. Y belongs to the set of real numbers. So I'd be shading like this, like this, like this, and then once again, open dot, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Tricky. Okay. All right. Today, it's all about graphs. Okay, so you turn the page. I've got a few more for you. Okay. Now, these are a little bit different too. But let me ask you to think about part G. May I ask you right now to experiment and figure out what the domain is going to be? Okay, so you figure this out. And then hopefully you can also experiment and figure out what the range is going to be. Okay? So I'm going to let you try to do part G first, and then part H is more complicated, so we'll do that together. And then hopefully you can do part I. Okay? By the way, this extra stuff down here, tricky, tricky, tricky. But I think you guys can do it. Okay. All right, try G on your own, please, right now. Okay. So you just told me that your domain is everything between -3 and 3. Okay. What's your biggest number here, first of all? 3. So really what you're saying is x has to be less than, is it less than or equal to 3? Equal, because this is a solid dot. Solid dot, solid, equal. That's the biggest part. Notice I left some room in front. What's the smallest value it's going to be? -3. Now, if I wanted to describe x being bigger or equal to -3, I can write it like this. Okay? It's like a sandwich in between. Here are my 2 pieces of bread. There's the meat. Right? It's a sandwich. So what you've just described to me using this notation is that the x value is between -3 and 3. And you also want to include those n values of -3 and 3. So anytime you have a little kind of range like this, okay, you can use this type of notation to describe those values. All right? So now I'm going to ask you, how about the y values? What do you think the y values are going to be? And see if you can write down the notation that describes what you're thinking in your head. Okay? And by the way, for those of you who want to watch my little demo here, I'll change this to yes. So, right, as I scroll through, there's my values for the domain from -3 to -3. And for those of you now who are curious about the range, let's change that to yes as well. Here we go. Watch the pink for the range, for those of you not too sure. So what's my range going to be then? -2 to 4. Good. So my range, once again, are the possible y values. So those go from -2, that's the smallest one, to 4, right, 4. Now be careful, range, you're using the y variable, so don't write down x, use the letter y. Yes? Okay? All right. Let's do the next one together, because this one is very, very tricky. Okay, domain, then range. Okay. Okay, let me bring up my computer program here. Not this one. Okay, it's this one here. Okay. All right, everybody, let's take a look at this one here. Let's do the domain first. Okay, I'm going to change this to yes. Watch what happens to the graph. Quiet, please. Okay. Let's take a look. Watch, watch, watch. What happens to the domain? I'm going to stop right about here. Oops. Didn't want to go that far. So what happens here? It stops, right? At -1, it stops. But can you see why this is an open dot? Why is it open dot? Because it's not equal to. Good. Now, how would I describe this part of my domain? X is between -4 and -1, but which one has the equal sign on it? The 4. So let's write that down first. Okay. This part here that we've done. Oops, I'll try and color code this. Blue, 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 but open dot. So what we've said here is that x must be a number that is between -4, and because -4 is a solid dot, we're going to put the equal sign. And the largest value here is going to be -1. But notice, because this is an open dot, there's no equal sign. Okay with that so far, dear friends? Okay. But wait a minute, you're thinking, Mr. Lee, there's another part of the graph we haven't touched yet. You're right. So let's go back to my computer program. Let me continue to move along here. Let's see what happens. Okay. So here we go. Watch the blue. Okay. So for this part to the right, what's the interval, or what's the domain for this part? What's the lowest value of x? 1. What's the largest value of x? 4. Which one do I put the equal sign on? 1. Bravo. So in your notes now, you have to write down this, and you have to say, because there are two parts, you can this or, and let's continue on now. And if you don't have enough space, let me erase the range. Let's put it down there. I'll say the other portion begins at 1. It's less than or equal to. And where do I stop? 4. And that's your answer. Okay? 2 pieces to your graph, 2 pieces to your domain. Okay? All right. Range. Back to my computer program. Let's take a look at the range. Anyone predict what the range could be here? Any suggestions for us? It's going to go up and down, yeah. But can you tell me maybe the lowest value for the range and the highest value for the range? Any idea? Looks like 0 is the lowest, right? And then 2 is the highest. Let's take a look. Let's rotate. Oh, 3 is the highest. Okay, 3. Let's take a look. There's 3, right? And here I'm going down, 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 down. Okay? Now notice what I just did. Listen up. This is important. I've only traced out this part of the graph. Do you see why this is a solid dot at 3? Solid dot. Alright? Why is this an open dot at 0? Because over here, it's an open dot. See that? Is that my full answer though? No, there's more. Watch as I continue now. As I continue, watch very subtly what happens to that side in purple or pink. Do you see what just happened there, by the way? Okay, can you see? Do you see that? Do you see that again? One more time. Look, right now, this is an open dot. Okay, because right now it's open. But as I scroll over here, once it hits this one, because this is solid, that 0 now becomes solid. I hope you can see this. Right? Open, oh, no, solid. Oh, there you go. Open, solid. Open, solid. Got it? So once I traced out the whole thing, what's my range here for this one? 0 to 3. Do I include both endpoints? You bet. There we go. So let's go back to our notes now. This one here, the range is the following. Y must be between the values of 0 and 3. And you want to also include them all. Okay? Okay, let me just think about this right now. Let's do I, and then afterwards I'll only do one of the J and K's. I won't do both. All right, why don't you try I right now? By the way, for your domain, do you see how there are 3 different parts? 1 part, 2 part, 3 part? Guess how many things you're going to have to write here? 3. Have fun. I'll let you try it out first. So there should be 3 things. There should be something, or something, or something else. And then the range won't be as bad. Okay? Please try. Okay, try your own right now. Experiment, see what you can get. Not too sure. I like the shading part. Okay, so I'm going to start shading along here. Going from -6, I think I'm going to start shading up to the number 0. Good. How do I describe that in the notation? Well, x must be between -6 and 0. Why did I put those equal signs there with the inequality? It's because these are solid dots. Okay. Now, okay, what's the next part? The next part that's shaded is between 1 and 2. But notice that at the 2, it's an open dot. So I guess I can write down 1 and 2, but be careful because it's an open dot, I just want the less than sign, no equal underneath. Okay? And then the last piece, this stuff here, from 3 to 6, that looks like what we just had for the first part. So this is what you got. Okay? That's your domain for this piece here. Okay? Is that 6? 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the range now. Range, it actually is a little bit more complicated. Yeah. Ready? I need your phone. Give her your phone. Okay. Next one. Let's do range. Okay, watch. Let's start with the range. What's the lowest value for the range? -1. Good. So watch as I shade in things first of all, okay? I'll use green to shade this in. Watch. -1 all the way to 1. Okay? I'm done. How do I describe that part, dear friends? It's your y value from -1 to 1. Do you know why I put the equal signs there? Because they're all solid pieces, right? Okay. Now, is that the only part for y? No. Okay, what else is there? Starting from 2, solid or not? Solid. Okay, 2 to 4. Open dot. Solid dot. Okay, now, but wait. Don't write this stuff down yet. Because I looked over here for this third piece. What does this third piece have? Where does this start and end? That starts at 2. No, it starts at 3. And then it goes all the way to? What was that? Sorry. It starts at 2 or 3. And we're going all the way up to? Wow, what happened to my computer? 9, right? Whee! So you see how when I shade that in, at 4, there used to be an open dot, but now because over here I shaded it in, that open dot became solid. Okay, all the way up to 9. So how would you now describe this region here? Somebody help me out. What's the smallest y value there? 2. So I'll say or 2. And should I put an equal sign or not? Equal, good. And then what's the largest one on top? 9. Equal sign or not? Very good. That's the answer. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just choose one of the ones from underneath. J or K? You choose. Don't choose JK. I'm not just kidding. J? All right. Ignore. Okay, let's do J. I'll give you a few minutes to try J. Those of you who are already done J, try the one underneath, okay? Oh well. For those of you online, I dismissed J. Look at it. All right. How about the range for J then? Okay, last piece here. Range for J. So the range, once again, is the part that is along the y-axis. So let's see what parts get shaded along the y-axis. I guess that'd be shade, 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 like that for the part on the left. But of course, there's a part on the right too. The part on the right shades from up here. Whoa. Shade, 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 shade. Whoa. So which part dominates? It's the one on the right. If you wrote down your answer like this, give yourself a gold star. Gold star. There you go. Okay? All right. Now, to finish off today, I want to do 2 more examples. Okay? I know this stuff is hard. Let me just tell you, I probably gave you harder examples than you'll actually see in your homework. Okay? So I don't think your homework will be as complicated or as tricky as these last few, but nonetheless, I still wanted to show you this idea. Okay? Let's kind of combine all this stuff together now, okay? I want you to now look at example number 6. And notice here what I've done is I've given you a graph. Here's the graph, okay? This is the equation that corresponds to the graph. Now here we're going to talk about domain and range again. It says determine the range value when the domain value is -1. Okay, now which one is it? Which one is domain? Which one is range? Which one's x? Which one's y? What's x? X stands for domain. Good. So really what I'm saying is this. Okay, translation. Determine means find. The range value is find y when the domain means when x is equal to -1. That's what that statement means. Can you tell me the y value when x equals to -1? Okay, now let's do this both ways. Let's do this graphically and let's do this with the equation. On the graph, how would you figure this out? On the graph, you look for where x is -1. Where is x equal to -1 in the graph? Here it is. And you look up the graph, and this is your point. So what's the coordinate of this point? It's -1, comma 1. So what's the y value here? 1. That's it. That's your answer. The range value is 1. So I'll say the range value is 1. Okay? That's all. That's all you need to do if you have a graph. By the way, what happened if I didn't give you the graph? What if I said, oops, you can't see this, but you can see that? How would you have found out the range value? Just plug in the number, right? Take the number -1, plug it in. 2 times -1 plus 3. What's 2 times -1? -2. Plus 3 is? There you go. Same answer. The next question, you mean? All right, let's do the next one, okay? Let's do the one afterwards now. So Mehdi said, hey, Mr. Lee, that's cool, but how do you find the next one? Okay, so determine means find, right? When I say the domain value, what letter am I asking you to find? X. When the range value, what's that? When y equals to 3. Okay. So for this question, if I asked you to look at the graph only, I want you to look along the y-axis and tell me where is y equal to 3. This is y equals 0. This is y equals to 1. y equals 2. Where's y equals to 3? Right here. Which means your y coordinate is 3, but what is your x coordinate here? What's your x coordinate for this point? 0. There you go. So what's the value here? What's x equal to? 0. So I'll say the domain value is 0. That's it. Mehdi, does that make sense to you? No? Which part doesn't make sense then? So you gotta give me more than that. Don't just tell me, oh, which part? Is it because you don't understand the translation of the words here to the x and y's? Shh. I'm sure you're not the only one here that doesn't understand, so give me some feedback so I can help you out. Suleiman, yes? I'll show you the calculation in a second. I'll show you. But I want to do the graph first. Jillian, do you have a response here? No? You have a question for me? No? Mehdi? You ask me later? Okay, alright. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Suleiman said, can we do this numerically without the graph? Yes, you can. Watch. Let me erase this. Here's your equation. Suleiman, you said find x when y equals to 3. So what you need to do here is wherever you see y, replace it with 3. And then you have to use algebra to solve for x. So how do we do this? Well, how do we solve this algebra equation? Let's subtract 3 on both sides, right? So what's 3 minus 3? 0. 0 equals 2x. What do we do next? Divide by 2. What's 0 divided by 2? 0. There you go. Same answer. Okay. All right. Let's do the next part here. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be good at doing this using the picture and at also using the equation. Because sometimes you're not going to be given the picture, you just have the equation. At other times, I will just give you the picture and you don't have an equation. Okay. What does this notation represent? I think we've seen a little bit of this before in earlier sections. F of x, right. So really what this says is find f of x when x equals to 1. Now what's another word for f of x or a variable that we use? That's right. This is the same thing as y. So f of 1, okay, really means figure out the y value when x equals to 1. So looking at the picture, when x equals to 1, what do we have here? What's the coordinate? 1, comma 5. So what's the y value in this case? It's equal to 5. So I'll just say f of 1 equals to 5. There's your answer. You're done. That's it. All right. And then the last part here, part 4, find x if f of x equals to 5. Well, now I just turned the tables on you. I said find x. Okay, find x when, and you said f of x is the letter y, so when y equals to 5. Well, looking at my picture, what's the x value when y equals to 5? I showed that to you already, right? When x is 5, the x value is 1. That's it. Okay? All right. I've got one more page for you, right? I think I've showed you everything you need to try the back page, I believe. So I'm going to ask you to try to think about this one now. I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to try. Write down whatever answer you can. I'll get Angie to come around and help you out as well. And then after that, I think I won't start the next section with you today. I will just stop here. For those of you who did not finish your homework, you will do that right now as well. And for those of you who have finished your homework, try example 7 first and then start on the rest. Okay? Okay. Go ahead, please. Try number 7. All right. First question here says determine the domain value when the range value is 3. Okay. Using your finger right now, point to where the range value of 3 actually is. The range value talks about which one, x or y's? Y. So I'm looking along the y-axis. Where is 3? It's right here. Okay. So that's 3 right here. So what is my domain value? Well, you look at your graph, and it looks like I've got a point right here. Notice that the coordinates of this point is -1, 3. So what's my domain value here? It's -1. How many of you wrote that one down? Good. How many of you wrote down something else besides -1? Oh, Stella, where's the other one then? Take a guess. I know it's not exact, but take a guess. -1 point. Ah, ladies and gentlemen, there's another value when the range value equals to 3. That's right here, right next door. And Stella said that looks like approximately -1.3. Sure. So guess what? 2 answers. Trick question. Yeah, I told you this one's pretty tricky. Okay. Now, how about the range? Determine the range value when the domain value is 5. So this is what I'm saying. Given that the domain value is 5, so when x equals to 5, find the y value. Where is x equals to 5 on this graph? Nowhere. So what's your y value? Nowhere. Not applicable or no answer. Yes, no answer. Okay, no answer. Not applicable. Am I going to put that on a test? If I was cruel, I would. Am I cruel? I will be now, since you said that. Okay, how about the next one? F of 0. Once again, this means find the y value when x equals to 0. Yeah, this one's a little bit tricky too. When x equals to 0, that is right here. This is x to 0. Where's the actual dot that takes place? I see a solid dot and I see an open dot. Which one should I use? Solid. Very good. So this is the coordinate I'm looking for. So therefore the value is 1. Okay, rolling on to the next one. Find the x value if f of x equals to 1. So what I'm saying now is find x if, and this statement just means if y is equal to 1. So go and look on your graph. Where is y equal to 1? It looks like y equals to 1 right there and everywhere else along here. So what values am I talking about in this particular example? How about this one, which is 0? Where else? -2 over here. Very good. Where else? 1. Good. Where else? In between 1 and 2. Let's just estimate that. 1.5. Wow. 4 different answers. Tricky, 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 Ricky, yes. Okay, and let's just do 2 more, and then I'll let your brains decompress. F of -1, what does this mean again? This is find the y value when x equals to -1. That's what that means, and someone shouted out to me, 3. Right, it's the solid dot, right? 3. And the last piece, find x when f of x equals to 0. F of x equals 0, once again, is when y equals 0. So look at your graph. Where is y equal to 0? At -3 right here. What other value? 2. So you have 2 answers, -3 and 2. Ladies and gentlemen, homework for today. This part here, okay, for sure. And then the challenge part is this part. This is optional. Okay. From the list that Angie gave me today, there were some of you who actually didn't finish your homework. Shame, shame, shame. So you get to spend some time with me at lunchtime today. And I think I already talked to who you are, so those of you who know, you should stay. You're staying? Okay. And the rest of you, please try this homework tonight. Okay, this stuff is not easy. Alright? Not easy. Don't go yet. Just relax. You got a few minutes.
Does that mean you're lucky? Yeah, find y.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't write anything.
Which one?
That means.
The correct answer
That means.
to an arithmetic problem is given below, together with 4 incorrect answers. So they're saying one of these is the correct answer. Okay, 4 of them are not. It says the total number of letters, not counting the hyphens. Hyphens are these dashes. The total number of letters in all of the incorrect answers is what? So you have to figure out which one is the right answer. It's weird. Huh? Yeah. You got homework from today too, do you?
Yeah, I actually even checked. I need more stuff to do at home.
What do you need more stuff to do?
There's nothing to do at home.
I'll give you more then. Have a seat for a bit. Hello, sir. Why should I give it back to you? I'll put the graph. Okay.
Look nice.
You were texting.
Look nice.
Yes. Okay, everybody have a good day. See you Monday.
Silly. I didn't even send a text. You just took my phone. He's like, let me borrow your phone. No,
I know.
I gave it to
One day.
By the way, why are you saying that to him?
I know exactly. He's so distracting. I didn't even. Oh my. I don't know why he doesn't. Well, actually, that's my fun. School. I did. He's like, no. It took a long time, so it takes like 10 minutes. Huh? Just order it from. But it's also just order squid. No. What's the size? You can have my phone back, please. What can I have? I need to schedule an appointment with my. Are you serious? Oh my. Wait, what? What did he say? Friday. Friday? Alright, I'll see you later, man. No, actually, I need my phone.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Are you serious? Like, actually, I need my phone. I need to schedule an appointment with my physiotherapist. Well, you'll use my phone again. No, I need my phone. What? I wasn't even doing anything. This guy just takes my phone. I didn't even text or do anything. He's not. He's gonna give it to us. Oh really? Friday. Brian, he's gonna give it to us. Calm down. Give us
Mr. M? Excuse me.
That's a huge insult.
Oh, showing this stuff.
I'm not freaking crying.
By the way, see you Friday.
No, honestly, can I have my phone?
Tell me the deal for you. Yeah, when you play homework now, you ask her to tell me to give you back the phone.
No, but she might not answer. Okay, you can give his phone back because it's my fault. I didn't do anything. You keep it until Friday. It's my fault. Just keep it until Friday.
Don't tell me after school.
Actually, like, I need my phone. I'm not even joking.
Relax, she's not gonna keep it. You're not allowed to.
I know, but I need it. Like, I'm not even joking. No, that's not cool. Actually, can I have my phone?
Let me help her with it. You come back and note it.
If you understand the material,
Don't worry, I'll ask my dad.